All right, Joey, we're going to talk about one of our products again. I do love doing these. This is kind of funny because this is the second time we've done this. We did one of these for the old version of this product.
Yeah.
And before we were able to release it, we came up with a better, newer version.
I think it was a couple weeks before we officially changed it over, or we started discussing changing it over, that we did this.
Yeah, so I'm glad we caught it before we published it.
I had a lot of my prep done already, so that made life a little easier for me.
Oh man, we are talking about Iron Advanced Essentials. This is a relatively new product, obviously, to the lineup, but it is in place of an older product.
Yeah.
It's an improved variation. Tell me about this product, Iron Advanced Essentials.
Yeah, so Iron, this is our first, like we said, it's the first update we've ever had on the Iron product. Again, this is not a quantum leap. This is an update to the product that we've never done before. So when you're talking about iron supplementation in general, there's a lot of nuance and detail. This video is not meant to discuss the ins and outs of ferritin levels and what the different levels mean and things like that. That's more of a deep dive subject.
We've done episodes on that in the past, I think. And so if not, we can do it again.
Yeah, today, this video is mainly a discussion. You've been diagnosed. You've been instructed by a practitioner to take oral iron. This is not about the infusions either. That's a whole nother level. And I think one thing too, and why I felt the need to mention that, is that anytime you're dealing with a supplement that has legitimate, but is clearly associated with fatigue and energy, we'll get into some nuance a little bit later, but just generally speaking, fatigue and energy is linked to iron. I relate the way life is today. Yep. Tired, energy, fatigue. So people jump right in. I'm going to try iron. I'm going to try B12. In this case, with iron specifically, it's measured in the blood and it's critical to maintain it within levels. So this is not like, oh, iron is so great, we all need to take it, like maybe like an omega-3 video would be, or a probiotic would be. This is, you've been diagnosed, okay? There are a couple exceptions to that broad statement for women. We'll get to those. But yeah, long-term excess iron, not just nausea, stomach pain, diarrhea, but long-term, you can get liver and organ damage. They've even found prolonged excess levels lead to an increased incidence of colon cancer. So it's not something to play around with.
Yeah. So this is specifically for people who are low in iron, which is a blood test that can be done before you should probably start taking this.
Got it.
For most people.
You got it.
Okay.
So maybe your doctor has, a practitioner has told you to take 1 or 2 iron, just over-the-counter supplements. Ferrous sulfate is typically what you would get. What do you do to navigate that? Why maybe is there another option compared to just popping into your grocery store and grabbing a bottle of iron? So first of all, iron, yes, is a metal. And in our body, though, what's important here is how it translates into human physiology. Also, the interplay with food and supplement intake, and just a little more about that. Iron supports prenatal and cognitive health, and critically, like we mentioned, iron balance, okay? It's a component of the proteins that are involved in oxygen transport, okay? So hemoglobin, myoglobin, ferritin. Basically, hemoglobin is what carries oxygen from the lungs into various tissues and organs. Ferritin is how your body stores it to be able. So again, that's where it goes back to some of the measurements and things like that. Gets a little complicated because some of it you're looking at storage, active iron, etc. To what we typically see with the average adult, issues related, if you have a symptom, if you're purposely getting checked for it, it's related to that energy balance component. So in food, iron, like a lot of the supplements we talk about, hence the name, there are nuances in terms of how we take in iron from our diet. There's heme iron versus non-heme iron.
Okay.
All right. In the most broad sense, you can think of heme iron as the most absorbable form of iron. That is the closest step to the ultimate goal of iron being a part of hemoglobin. Remember, it's not just iron floating around in our blood. It's how our body takes the iron. It's a key component to making hemoglobin. Non-heme iron is just kind of the iron itself in ionized form. So again, the heme iron is what you'll find in red meat, poultry, fish, and that's the one that you're going to get closer. It's a step closer to the production of hemoglobin. Non-heme iron is found in plants and eggs. Okay. Heme iron is absorbed at 35%, non-heme iron 17%, so about half. So back to the energy balance. Okay. So iron supplements are often a standard recommendation following blood work for treatment and fatigue. So I do want to emphasize how important it is. There was a French study done in 2012, 200 menstruating women ages 18 to 53. Otherwise, blood work was healthy, but complained of fatigue. They had low ferritin. Half of the subjects took it, the other half took a placebo. So a well-designed trial. Fatigue was measured using a questionnaire, and it was blinded. At the close of 12 weeks, they found significant improvement in the non-placebo group, in the iron group. So we know that when those levels move, if that's all that's going on, iron makes a huge difference.
Very cool.
So in terms of supplementation of iron itself, you look at a bottle, your doctor say, take a ferrous sulfate 325. One thing that's important, and then maybe you'll look at ours and it says 29. You're like, oh my goodness, like what is going on there? So ferrous sulfate 325 is the total weight of the ferrous and the sulfate components. Okay. The amount of actual iron, if you're looking at that label that's in more of a fine print situation, there is 65 milligrams. So yes, you get 65 milligram of essentially non-heme, not very well absorbed iron in a traditional ferrous sulfate. That's what you're going to find on the shelf. Ours contains 29 of actual heme iron or something close to that, something that functions the same way in the body in terms of absorption. So you're not comparing 325 to 29. You're comparing 65 to 29. So it basically, if you've been told to take one of those tablets, take two of ours. That's the most simplest way to look at it. It also does provide flexibility in dosing. Maybe your level's coming up and your doctor has to decide between taking you off or on. You can cut down to one. You can maybe go from 2 to 3 if the levels aren't moving. You have a little more flexibility given the strength.
Okay.
So yeah, related to dietary intake, serving of chicken, 1.8 milligrams, steak, 6 milligram. And again, those are both heme forms. So you often associate red meat with iron, and that's, certainly true. You're going to get a significant amount from chicken, but still not at a red meat level.
Yeah.
Eggs, 0.6 per egg.
And that's non-heme.
Non-heme as well.
Wow.
Yes. Now, who's eating one egg? Anytime we talk about these kind of things,
sure,
whether a supplement or mainly with food, it's the serving size that's important. But you're
not eating 20.
Exactly. Yes. Serving of beans, which we're definitely not eating even 3, 4, 5 of those. Right. 0.6. Spinach, wow. 0.8. And like you brought up, it's more poorly absorbed. So from right there, this is not a pro red meat, but just be aware. The facts are, if you're a vegetarian, you're consuming less iron on average. And then from there, you're definitely consuming the non-heme, not as absorbed form. So it's particularly in menstruating women. It's just something to be aware of related to, even if it's not fatigue or you haven't had the blood work done yet, to maybe get that checked if you're dealing with that.
Okay.
Males are recommended, depending on age, 8 to 11 milligrams of iron daily. Females of reproductive age, so from adolescence through menstruating years, is 18 milligrams.
Okay.
So women certainly have the higher demand due to menstruation.
And that's just because of blood loss?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the need to produce.
Replenish that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I think one thing that's important to understand as well, especially again, when we're dealing with supplements that are recommended to you, is what are the other factors that may inhibit absorption? How am I, 25, not low on iron, and I'm 32 and I'm low on iron? How does that happen? So a few different kind of explanations for that are tea, coffee intake, chocolate, even certain fruits. They're not, diminishing your iron stores, but if they're taken in at the same time as the food, if you eat the red meat with a bunch of fruit, coffee with your et cetera, you are inhibiting the body's ability to absorb iron at that point.
Okay.
Calcium. A lot of times, again, we see an overlap. Somebody needs a calcium supplement. Maybe they're at the age and situation, they know they need iron as well. Well, they take everything in the morning. Basically the way the body absorbs those minerals, you're going to cut down the absorption of both.
Wow.
So whether you're supplementing it or you're taking your calcium with meals, which is recommended, just be aware that can throw off the iron level as well. Zinc, similar thing, be the same mechanism.
So ideally you want to take those at different times?
You just want to be aware.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really depends. Calcium and iron supplementation that's been recommended to you. Yes, definitely at both times. Something like your diet and things like that may only be an issue if you're not getting movement, if you're trying to figure out maybe why something happened, just a little background. But yeah, the more actual recommendation would be the calcium and iron for sure.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Right. Just wanted to differentiate. Medications as well. So again, what else could change that could cause that to happen, or what else makes you need a higher dose, etc. Antacids. So definitely the calcium, magnesium kind of Tums style immediate antacids, as well as PPIs, proton pump inhibitors that are used more long term for heartburn and acid reflux. They reduce stomach acidity, and acidity is necessary for iron absorption.
That makes sense. Coffee,
tea, alcohol. Also, certainly GI conditions, celiac, Crohn's, could all affect absorption.
Okay.
So anemia, Advanced Essentials is the bisglycinate form of iron. So again, you're not just ferrous sulfate. The iron has to be bound to something. It's bound to sulfate in that case. In this case, it's bound to bisglycinate, a more highly absorbed heme form of iron than ferrous sulfate. 59% studies have shown higher absorption than sulfate.
Wow.
The other related to its absorption and just the way that the body handles it, it's very common to get GI side effects from ferrous sulfate: stomach discomfort, heartburn, loss of appetite, constipation, darker than usual stool. It's the sulfate form is pretty hard on the gut. The bisglycinate form is very easy on the gut. So first and foremost, what is the difference between this? And besides all the details I've laid out, if you are taking ferrous sulfate and you're having some stomach issues, consider a switch. It's not about stopping iron or skipping it. It's about there are other options for you.
That's fantastic. All right. How many do people normally take? I guess that depends on what the doctors recommended.
So you can always remember kind of the double rule here. If you've been told to take one standard tablet, take 2 of ours. If you've been told to take 2 standards, obviously then you go to 4. But there's flexibility in between. The one nuance I do want to mention to kind of how we open this is that for women during menstruation itself, not just menstruating women, but during the period, they already, again, are starting with a higher RDI, recommended amount than men. But especially if your menstruation's on the heavier side, something like a few days of the heavier bleeding may be beneficial to take 1 a day during that time. And the reason is not just for the obvious that, that there's a loss, but that it may not reflect in blood work. If you're going through a 28-day cycle and there's only an issue during 5 of those, and then you're checking blood work, things like iron storage may not purely be affected, but during that period, especially if you are feeling fatigue, that can be more of a short-term kind of boost to you energy-wise. Again, if you're on the heavier side, maybe your blood work's coming back normal. Yeah, that could be why, because again, it's relegated to that amount of time. The other nuance is pregnant women. In fact, the CDC recommends low-dose iron supplementation beginning with your first prenatal visit.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I would recommend get your level checked, because, again, it's very important in prenatal development. But even just this would be the one time kind of just at a baseline, you could start taking 1 of these a day at the beginning of pregnancy.
And again, there is a consequence to having way too much iron in your blood.
Yes.
So we're not saying everybody should be taking 5 of this. Those are very specific use cases.
Exactly.
Okay. That is fantastic. I'm glad to get this done. I'm even more excited that we are keeping up with the latest and best with these products, making sure that they are top notch, always on point. If you would like to learn more or find this product, you should do so at our website, askjoedimatteo.com. That's askjoedimatteo.com. That site has the Iron Advanced Essentials as well as all the other products that we sell. You should go check them out there. Joey, thanks so much.
Thank you.